Long Island medium star Theresa Caputo recently faced a heartbreaking incident. Her ex-husband Larry Caputo killed their pet dog, and after the incident, Theresa Caputo reported him to the police. In view of this, the police took him on a 24-hour remand. This incident has become a big blow in his life, which has come before everyone. Theresa Caputo, known to millions as the Long Island Psychic, had always believed in the unseen forces that guided the universe. But nothing could have prepared her for the darkness that would consume her life in an instant. It was an ordinary afternoon when the news broke. Larry Caputo, her ex-husband, who once shared a life with her, had committed an unspeakable act. Their beloved pet dog, Max, a loyal companion to both, had met an unfortunate fate. No one knew the exact details, but the pain was real. Larry, in a moment of anger and confusion, had taken the life of the animal that had brought so much joy to their home. Theresa, devastated, found herself staring at a reality she couldn't process. Max was more than just a pet. He was a family member, a silent witness to their years of shared laughter and sorrow. The bond they had formed with the little dog was unbreakable, and now it was shattered. In the face of this unbearable loss, Theresa did the only thing she could. She reported Larry to the police. It wasn't just the loss of Max that tore at her heart. It was the betrayal of someone she had once loved, someone who had once been her partner in both life and love. She couldn't reconcile the man she knew with the one who could commit such an act. Larry was swiftly taken into custody, his world collapsing around him as he was placed under a 24-hour remand. The pain of knowing he had lost everything, a wife, a family, and his own dignity, was more excruciating than any prison sentence. His friends and family were shocked, unable to comprehend how someone so kind and loving could spiral into such darkness. But the tragedy didn't stop there. The public eye, ever vigilant, devoured the news. Theresa, a woman who had spent her life helping others find peace and clarity, now found herself drowning in grief and confusion. She didn't just lose a dog, she lost a piece of her past, her trust in the people she once called family, and her belief in the goodness of those closest to her. As the days passed, Theresa found solace in her work, helping others who reached out to her. But the grief was always there, lingering in the background, reminding her of the cruelty that had been unleashed in her life. In the quiet moments, she reflected on the years with Larry, how they had started as soulmates, connected by love, only to be torn apart by something darker, something neither of them had seen coming. The woman who could sense the energy of the universe was left wondering where the warning signs had been for this tragedy. Larry, in his own time, began to understand the weight of his actions. The isolation he felt in the wake of his crime was unbearable. He tried to reach out, but it was too late. The damage was done, and the repercussions would echo through the rest of their lives. Theresa's heart ached for the man he had once been, but the world had changed. She couldn't undo the past, nor could she return to a place of safety with someone who had shattered their trust so violently. In the end, Theresa Caputo learned that even the strongest bonds could break. The universe she once trusted seemed uncertain, leaving her to navigate a world where the line between light and dark was no longer so clear. However, it had been a year since Evelyn lost her husband John. The house they once shared felt colder, quieter, and emptier without his warm presence. Every corner of the house seemed to echo with memories of their life together, laughter at the dinner table, whispered goodnights, and the comforting scent of John's cologne that still lingered in the air. Evelyn had tried to move on, but the grief felt like a weight she couldn't shake off. Her friends had encouraged her to seek help, suggesting therapy or joining a support group. But Evelyn had always been skeptical of things she couldn't touch or see, especially when it came to the supernatural. The idea of speaking to a medium, someone who claimed to communicate with spirits, was something she could never imagine herself doing. Then one day, as she flipped through a magazine, an article caught her eye. Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, was coming to town. The thought of seeing someone with such an incredible gift seemed almost too coincidental. Could it be a sign? At first, Evelyn dismissed it. It was just another celebrity. But something about it gnawed at her, so on a whim, she called the number listed in the article. To her surprise, they had an opening for a reading. She felt a strange mix of excitement and dread as the appointment was confirmed. The day of the reading arrived, and Evelyn was a bundle of nerves. As she sat down in front of Theresa, the air in the room seemed to shift. Theresa, with her trademark blonde hair and bright, open eyes, smiled warmly at Evelyn. "Thank you for being here today," Theresa began. "I have a very strong feeling that we're about to make a connection, Evelyn. Someone is trying to reach you, someone who has passed. Can you feel it?" Evelyn nodded, trying to steady her breath. I don't know what to expect," she admitted. Theresa closed her eyes for a moment, her hands resting lightly on the table. Then, she opened her eyes and looked directly at Evelyn. "I'm sensing a man. He's standing right behind you. He's tall, with a bit of a rugged appearance, and I feel a deep love for you. He's showing me something, a wedding ring, and he's saying, 'I'm sorry I couldn't be there at the end.'" Tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes. "That's John," she whispered, her heart racing. "He passed away last year from cancer. We were married for 25 years. Theresa nodded, her expression softening. "He says he never wanted to leave you. He regrets not being able to say goodbye the way he wanted to. He's been watching over you, Evelyn, and he's so proud of your strength. He knows how much you miss him." Evelyn felt a lump form in her throat, a mix of relief and sorrow. The grief she had carried for so long seemed to ease, if only a little, knowing that John was still there in some way. Theresa continued, "He's showing me a memory of the two of you sitting by a fireplace, drinking tea. He wants you to remember that moment. That love you shared is eternal. And he's telling me, tell her it's not over. I'm always with her." Evelyn's heart swelled with emotion. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of peace. She knew that she would never stop loving John, but hearing his words, knowing that he was still with her in spirit, helped her take the first step toward healing. As the reading came to a close, Theresa smiled at Evelyn, her expression gentle. "Your husband is at peace now, and so are you. It's time for you to live your life with the love he left behind in your heart. He's proud of you, and he's watching over you always." Evelyn left that session feeling lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her soul. She knew that she would always miss John, but now she had the comforting thought that love never truly dies. It just transforms into something else, something eternal. However, it was a warm, quiet evening at a small private gathering on Long Island. The sun had set, casting a soft golden hue through the windows. Rosie O'Donnell, the famous comedian and TV personality, had been invited to attend a special event hosted by Theresa Caputo, the renowned psychic medium. Rosie had heard about Theresa's incredible gift, but she was skeptical, unsure of what to expect. As the evening went on, the guests mingled, enjoying drinks and light conversation. Finally, it was time for Theresa to begin her readings. One by one, guests were called to sit with Theresa in a quiet corner, where the reading would take place. Rosie, feeling a mix of curiosity and nervousness, was one of the last people to be invited. She took a seat across from Theresa, who greeted her with a warm smile. "Rosie, I sense someone here with us tonight." Theresa began, her eyes closed, her voice calm and reassuring. "Someone who's been watching over you for a long time." Rosie raised an eyebrow. "I'm not sure what you mean," she said, trying to remain composed. Theresa continued, her tone becoming more personal. "There's a woman. I can feel her presence strongly. She's someone you loved deeply, someone who left a mark on your heart. She's trying to reach you now." Rosie's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this, but Theresa's calm energy was hard to resist. Slowly, Rosie's mind began to wander to her late mother, who had passed away several years ago. Could it be her? She's telling me she's proud of you, Rosie, Theresa said softly. She's proud of everything you've accomplished, especially how you've been so strong in the face of adversity. She wants you to know that she's been with you every step of the way. She's sending you love and guidance. Tears welled up in Rosie's eyes. She had never been the type to easily show her emotions, but hearing these words she had longed to hear for so long, cracked something deep within her. She took a shaky breath, trying to hold herself together, but the tears began to fall freely. I didn't know if she was still here with me, Rosie whispered, her voice breaking. I miss her so much. Theresa reached across the table, placing a comforting hand on Rosie's. She's here, Rosie. She's always with you. Her love never left, and she's sending you strength in ways you may not always see, but they are there. Rosie sobbed, overwhelmed by the emotional release. The years of grief and unanswered questions seemed to melt away in that moment, replaced by a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. It was as if her mother had reached across the veil, giving her a message of reassurance. Theresa sat quietly, allowing Rosie to process the emotions. When the tears slowed, Rosie finally spoke. Thank you. This means more to me than I can put into words. Theresa smiled, her eyes filled with understanding. You're welcome, Rosie. You've always had her love. Now it's time for you to embrace it fully. As Rosie left the reading, she felt lighter, more connected to her past and the love she had lost. It was a moment she would carry with her forever, a reminder that sometimes the ones we love never truly leave us. However, it was a quiet afternoon when Theresa Caputo, the renowned medium, sat in her cozy office, preparing for a new session. As always, she felt a calm anticipation, knowing that spirit would soon make itself known. Her clients had arrived, a couple sitting nervously on the couch, both with hopeful eyes and quiet hearts. Theresa closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and as she did, the room grew inexplicably cold. She felt a presence, small, yet powerful. She looked up and spoke. There is a child here, a young one, around 6 or 7, and there's something about water, something that happened near water. The couple immediately exchanged glances, their faces filled with disbelief and sorrow. The mother, her voice trembling, said, Our son. He passed away in a drowning accident. A few months ago, he had Down syndrome. Theresa's heart ached. She could feel the child's energy so clearly, as though he was standing right in front of her. His innocent, joyful spirit was full of life, despite his physical absence. Theresa smiled softly. He's showing me a place with water, perhaps a pool, but he's not upset. In fact, he's laughing. He's telling me he's free now. The mother broke down, her tears flowing as she spoke. He loved swimming. It was his favorite thing in the world. But that day, we couldn't get to him in time. Theresa nodded, her voice gentle. He's not blaming you, and he wants you to know that. He understands. He's telling me that he never felt scared. The moment he entered the water, he felt a sense of peace, almost like he was being gently embraced by the water. He's okay now. The father wiped his eyes, a mixture of grief and relief washing over him. We've struggled with guilt, wondering if he suffered, but hearing this, it brings us comfort. Theresa continued to channel the child, who, with childlike innocence, spoke directly to his parents. I'm swimming with dolphins now. I'm happy. You don't have to worry anymore. His energy was pure and loving, like a child who had simply moved on to a better place. Theresa's voice softened. He's telling me that you too will find peace in knowing that he was never afraid. He feels joy, not sorrow, and he is with you always in the little signs, like the sudden feeling of warmth when you least expect it, or the sound of water splashing when there's no one around. The couple sat in stunned silence, holding each other tightly. For the first time in months, they felt a sense of calm wash over them, a feeling that their son was not lost to them, but watching over them, a joyful presence, free in spirit. As the session ended, Theresa looked at the couple, her voice filled with certainty. Your son is happy. He's safe. He's swimming in peace. And with that, they left the session, their hearts lighter, knowing their son had found eternal peace, free in the waters of love that would never leave him. However, Theresa Caputo stood in the quiet room, her fingers lightly tracing the rim of her coffee mug. The world outside was still, but inside, there was a storm of emotions that she had learned to navigate over the years. Her gift was both a blessing and a burden, allowing her to reach out to those who had lost loved ones. But sometimes, the stories were too heartbreaking to carry. Today, she had a special session planned for a mother named Sarah, whose son had been tragically killed in a shooting. Theresa had heard about the loss from a mutual friend, and something in her heart told her this would be a particularly challenging reading. When Sarah walked in, her eyes were red from tears, her face drawn with grief. She had tried to move forward, to find a way to live without her son, but the pain was unbearable. She was at a loss, not knowing how to go on. Theresa stood up and greeted her warmly, her voice calm and reassuring. I'm so sorry for your loss, Sarah. I'm here to help you, and I want you to know you're in a safe space. They sat together, and the room grew still as Theresa focused on connecting with the spirits. A cold breeze swept through the room, and Theresa knew the spirit of Sarah's son was near. Her eyes fluttered closed as she began to receive the messages. Your son wants you to know he's not in pain anymore, Theresa said softly, her voice gentle but filled with certainty. He's at peace. He's surrounded by love. There's a sense of comfort from the other side. He's not angry. He's asking you to heal, to find the strength to live again, even though it feels impossible. Sarah gasped, her hand coming up to cover her mouth as a single tear slid down her cheek. Is he really okay? She whispered, her voice trembling. Theresa nodded, her own heart aching. He's telling me about the music you used to play for him. He's telling me that the songs you shared were his favorite memories. He's still with you, in every note, in every word you sing. His spirit is alive in the love you gave him. Sarah closed her eyes, and for a moment, the room seemed to soften around her. She could almost feel the presence of her son, a warmth that wrapped around her like a hug. Don't blame yourself, Theresa continued, her words soft but strong. Your son wants you to forgive yourself. He doesn't want you to carry this burden. He says he knows you did everything you could for him. He's proud of you, Sarah. The weight that had been pressing down on Sarah's chest seemed to lift just a little. For the first time in months, she felt the faintest sense of peace. As the session ended, Theresa gave Sarah one last piece of advice. Your son is always with you. He's watching over you. When you feel lost, talk to him. He hears you. And when you're ready, you'll feel him guiding you back into the light. Sarah stood up, wiping her eyes, her heart lighter than it had been in so long. Thank you, she whispered, her voice full of gratitude. Thank you for giving me a little bit of hope. Theresa smiled softly. You're welcome. Healing takes time, but you're not alone. Your son is with you, always. As Sarah left, Theresa watched her walk out into the world, carrying with her a glimmer of peace, knowing that sometimes the smallest whispers from the other side could heal the deepest wounds. Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome to my channel. I am Mina. Hope your day is so well. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe the channel.